Hey guys, today we're going to answer an interesting question. Do you really need an F-150 Raptor to go and do some serious off-roading? Or is a lower trim level like this Ford Tremor good enough? Now the difference is significant because we bought this truck for about $63,000, and if you wanted an F-150 Raptor, well, you'd be looking at least $20,000 more. This is Cliffhanger 1.0, and you've got the truth side and you've got the much harder dare side. Now I recently did a video where we took a Subaru, well, we tried to take a Subaru up this, but I had forgotten until watching that video that about 10 years ago I took the original Ford F-150 Raptor up this very hill. So let's cut to that video and you can see how that truck did. As you can see, I was much younger and much thinner when I took that first generation Raptor up this hill. And the one thing that really strikes me is just how much fun I was having, because the Raptor made easy work out of this hill. Now, of course, that was the first generation Ford Raptor. We had bought it for $53,000, which is $10,000 less than this Tremor. But my guess is that this Tremor is as good as the old Raptor, and we're going to find that out. But before we do that, let me kind of cut away from that video and kind of walk you through what makes this so off-road worthy. The most important thing about this Tremor is that it has General Grabber ATs, and as you can tell, they are meaty and they are knobby and they are off-road tires, because when you go off-road, it's really where the tire meets the dirt, and this has good off-road tires. The next thing you want is plenty of ground clearance, which the Tremor also has. Then of course you want a low range. Once again, the Tremor does have the low range. And then of course you're looking at things like shocks. Now, there are two levels of Tremor. This is the lower level. If we had gotten the higher level, we would have a Torsen front end, which effectively gives you a limited slip on the front. We don't have that, so this may suffer a little bit, but we do have a little bit better shocks. And of course, let me show you on the inside, an off-road program. Now, one of the great things about this truck is that you've got different drive modes. So let me show you. You've got obviously normal, you've got tow haul, you got eco, you got sport. But for our purposes, we want to go the other way. So we can go into slippery mode, which is fine for this. And all of a sudden it shifts into 4 low. And then you've got off-road mode, which we're in. And then if you really want to get serious, you can go into rock crawl mode, which is right there. And then it'll actually automatically switch you into 4 low when you do that. And it changes the throttle mapping, and it just gives you the confidence of not having to figure it out yourself. The other great thing that the original Raptor didn't have was all these cameras. So as you can tell, this camera kind of shows you where your front wheels are going to go. But then if you really want to get fancy, you can switch different camera angles. So this is your kind of your left and right. So you can see if you're about to hit something next to you. Over here, we have just what's next to the truck. This is behind you in case you're being stalked by a bear. You can see how fast you're going away from the bear. Let's see what that one does. That one's left, right behind you. Then you've got this trailer hitch cam, which is nice for hooking up trailers. And while the camera does tend to flatten things out, Cliffhanger 1.0 is very steep. Hard to show that on camera, but this truck may struggle a little bit, especially when going up the dare side. Back in the day when I ran Cliffhanger 1.0 in that original Raptor, there weren't a lot of seriously Baja racer off-road trucks, right? The Raptor kind of made that a thing. Before then, you had the FX4 package if you were a Ford purchaser, or you had the Z51 if you were a Chevy guy or gal, but you didn't have this plethora of off-road trucks, because now in the Ford lineup, and here we go, I'm going to go up truth first. Now in the Ford lineup, not only do you have the FX4, but you also have 2 levels of Tremor before you ever even get to the Raptor. And then you have 2 Raptors, right? There's a regular Raptor, actually 3 Raptors. There's a regular Raptor, the Raptor 37, which is on 37s, and then of course the Raptor R, which is the V8 Raptor, that's also on 37s. And if you were comparing this to, let's say, a Chevy or a Toyota or perhaps a Ram, this would be kind of a Rebel. Wouldn't quite be the RHO. We don't have a front locker. I don't think the RHO has one either. Or maybe if you were a Toyota, it'd be a TRD off-road. If you were a Chevy, it would be a Trail Boss. So it's kind of the mid-level off-road truck. And when we first bought that Raptor, that was one of the first trucks that we ever bought. And by the way, I just went up cliffhanger with TrueSide, and it didn't even struggle. The truck did not care. When I bought that first Raptor, I wanted not only kind of the coolest truck, because back then that was the it truck. If you knew anything about off-roading, or if you knew anything about trucks, or if you just wanted kind of the biggest, baddest, coolest truck in the land, the Raptor was it back then. And it came with 2 engines, if I remember right. They were both V8s, but the one you wanted was the 6.2 liter. And it opened up this whole genre of off-roading for full-size trucks that took it into kind of the level of a Jeep Wrangler, where these things became incredibly capable off-road. But that's what I wanted. But now, I'm not sure, for most of us, that you really need to spend, let's say, $20,000 on a Raptor R to have an off-road truck that does 99% of what the Raptor R does. Like this truck, I mean, I've got hill descent control, not that I'm using it, but if I wanted to, I could use it. I've got plenty of ground clearance, I've got great tires, I've got okay shocks. Probably not enough to run the Baja 1000 before they start to melt, but good enough for what I'm doing here. Plenty of ground clearance, and the trick is that the more off-roady you make a truck, you also lose on-road capability. And so the Raptor R may have a 700 horsepower V8 out of the GT500, but it only tows like, Andre would know this, but I think I'm not too far from the truth if I say 7, maybe 8,000 pounds, maybe a little bit over that. Whereas, a regular Ford F-150 with the towing package can go up to 12 or 13,000 pounds. So you are using an off-road truck on-road, but you're losing a lot of that on-road capability, like towing and hauling, because the payload is also much less. So this kind of is a nice and happy medium. All right, here we go. Up the dare side, I am taking this hard. I'm going not over the obstacle, I'm going through the obstacle. I'm going right down the middle of the V. I'm gonna go right over the elephant steps to see just how this does. And right now it is not struggling. Great throttle response with it in low gear. With this torque converter, I have perfect power, and now we're gonna go into the elephant steps, which is really gonna put this thing off kilter. And of course, this is where the Subaru struggled horribly last time we were here. And this truck is, I would say, not even breaking a sweat, and it is just loving it. So the question I keep asking myself is, this mid-level off-roader Tremor as good as the original hardcore Raptor? And I have to say it is. It might actually be better than the original Raptor, even though it doesn't have the the Fox shocks. This video is brought to you by our friends at Onyx, and if you're like me and you love off-roading and you never want to get lost, and even if you're out of cell service, you know exactly what trail you're on, click on the link below and use the discount code TFLoffroad to save 20%, because that way not only will you never be lost, but you won't be eaten by bears. So the proximity sensor was beeping, and it thought that there was something, I was about to hit something. And hopefully I wiped it off and it won't be beeping. Yeah, there you go, that sorted it. Okay, that's much better. Nope, still thinks there's something up there. I get to learn about my truck as you get to learn about my truck, or our truck. Rear occupant, remote startup, wipers, tailgate, locks, lights. It thinks that there's something in front of me, and there isn't. Oh, it just cleared itself. Nope, it didn't clear itself. All right, well, you're gonna have to put up with it, because obviously I can't figure out how to turn it off. So let's go through these elephant steps and see how it does, and then after I go through the elephant steps, I could try to actually turn this off. So I guess this is actually an interesting lesson that we've learned here, and that is that while the off-road technology, the mechanical stuff has gotten better, the electronic stuff is still problematic. Elephant steps, no problem whatsoever. Oh, I think I just managed to turn it off. I think on the screen I managed to turn it off. Let's find out if I did. Oh, hell yeah! Ford made it easy. Thank you, Ford. Well, that's good. I managed to fix it. So on the screen, I'll show you in a second when I get through this rather rough part, this rather difficult patch. What you end up doing is you just end up hitting the little proximity sensor warning and it turns itself off. Oh, there you have it. All right, so right here in the camera, let's see if it comes back on. There is an issue right there. The truck thinks that there is something to my right that I'm about to hit, even though there is nothing there. If you show them, Gavin, you can see that there's nothing, but it thinks that there's something. And the way you turn it off is you hit that, and that gets rid of the proximity control sensor. One of the things that's always annoying in an off-road vehicle is when you're off-road and you cycle. In other words, you stop the engine, you get out, you have lunch, you go pee, and you come back in, and then you start it up. Will it still be in off-road mode since I'm still off-road, or will the truck have reverted back to normal mode? And the answer for it is, let's see, oh heck yeah. Ford has kept me in, I believe, off-road mode. Yep, still in off-road status, still in 4 low, which is good. I don't want to go into 4 high, even though it's trying to, for some reason it's trying to go into 4. Look at that, it's trying to switch. It is trying to switch out of that, and it just switched out of it. Ford, what the heck? I just complimented you, and you just switched me out of off-road mode. What's up with that? Now we're back in rock crawl mode. Now it's going back into low. Shift in progress. Okay. And then if you show it over here, Gavin, you can kind of see I've got a compass. You can see I'm now at 8,776 feet. You can see the angle that the truck is at going uphill. You can see the pitch, basically pitch and roll. The rear is locked. And of course, we're not going that fast. Let's keep going up the trail. Oh, let's see if this got fixed. Look at that. It fixed itself. All right, so Ford is 1 for 2. One that it fixed by turning the truck off, the proximity sensor, but 2, that it actually shifted me out of off-road mode when I got back in the truck. So I guess that's 50% good, 50% not so good. The other thing that no manufacturer has yet been able to do is actually when you're on a very steep angle, these seat belts lock, and then you're like trying to reach something, you can't. And no manufacturer has been able to figure out how to do that. But I have to say, this truck is just eating up this off-road with no hesitation. I am incredibly impressed by just how much Ford has improved the F-150 over the last 10 years from that original Raptor, where it's just not even struggling. Now we've got some pretty watermelon-sized rocks here that we're kind of just crawling our way over, that this truck is making easy work out of. And right now I'm not actually missing that torsion front end or a locking front end. The one thing that I would give this truck a demerit for, and I would give this to all full-size trucks, in other words, all half tons, it's just a big truck. This would be much easier if we were in a mid-size truck, just because the trail gets narrow, it'll get narrow up here, and I might have to put my mirrors in, and it gets a little awkward. So this is the last kind of tricky bit before we get to the very steep climb and make it to the top of the mountain. But here, there are 2 boulders that in a mid-size truck or in like a Bronco I could go around. I kind of feel like with a full-size truck, I'm going to have to go up and over them, which is fine. And you don't want to straddle big boulders. It's much better to actually climb over them. And like there, I just went over it, and I was worried that coming down I would hit the frame, but I didn't. So plenty of ground clearance. but it would be a little bit easier if I were in a truck that's a little bit narrower. As you can tell, these trees, people have hit them already. I can tell on the side of the tree. But these trees have been hit by people coming up here. That's the other downside. When you fold your mirrors in, it's really hard to tell. I guess I could use a camera, but I'm kind of using the front-facing camera right now to see where I'm going, and that's kind of more important. But this is a bit of a tight squeeze coming through here. Is this 2025 Tremor as good as the first gen Raptor? Hell yes, it's as good as the Raptor off-road, it's as fun, but is it as good as the current Raptor? Well, the current Raptor has that wide body kit. It also has active suspension. It has more ground clearance, but it costs more and it has a V6, whereas this has a V8. So I would argue for 20 less, you get almost as much truck, certainly more engine, and all the off-road ability you'll ever need unless you're racing the Baja 1000. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time. Ciao.